I'm Luke Storey. For the past 22 years, I've been relentlessly committed to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of spirituality, health, psychology, and personal development. The Lifestylist Podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you. Man, this is a treat. I'm so happy we get to sit down and have a chat today.
Thank you very much, Luke.
The last 2 days, we've done a lot of deep work.
Mm-hmm.
We had our session here in the loft where we sit now.
Yep.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
And then yesterday, an all-day ceremonial event at our friend Cal and Peyton's land.
Yep.
And man, I got to say, when I woke up today, I'm like, I don't know if I can record a podcast today. It's like the energy over the past few days has been incredible. So it's an honor to have you here in Austin, honor to have you in our home. And I'm really looking forward to learning more about you and your life.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. So what's it been like to be here in Texas?
Texas. Yeah. First of all, let me say thank you for receiving me twice now in your humble space. Very powerful, And Texas, I have to say thanks to the land of Texas. I'm a naturalist, so anytime I'm traveling, I observe nature. I listen to nature. First time I traveled through Texas, I said, I think this place just look like where I'm coming from, my lands. The heat, nature, the plants, how everything is, the people, I'm like, I think at some point we're going to have to do something in Texas. And since 2021, so we've been trying to, set up things in Houston. And we have our local temple over there for, Kemetic spirituality and Dogon wisdom and all of that. And then after that, we managed to set our healing house, Ankhkasta Natural Healing over there as well. And I'm like, let me travel to Austin and see what's happening in Austin because it's not that far. And then there was an event happening. So I decided to come for a week to that event, medicine festival. And I'm like, I like this place. I love this place. It treats everything that is kind of in my composition as, welcoming and all of that. So I'm like, I feel welcome in this place. Maybe this is why I'm back here. But I have to say thanks to your wife, Alison, a very good warrior spirit. Who, spiritual warrior, I meant to say. She did the best that she could do to really get me here so that other spirits can get to benefit from me and so that I can get to learn from all of you as well over here. And I learned a lot.
Cool.
For the last 2 days, I've been learning a lot.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, when Allison had you on her podcast, Ceremony Circle, she was more excited than I've ever seen her after an interview. And you guys did it on Zoom.
Yes.
And me, personally, I find Zoom interviews just a little less enthralling than sharing space with someone in person.
That's right.
But even her recording with you on Zoom, I mean, she was lit up for like a week afterward.
Wow.
And she's interviewed some brilliant people. And I'll ask her how'd it go. She, oh, it was great. They were awesome, and she's happy. And then it's just kind of, we forget about it, But with yours, there was something about it. She was just floored.
Yeah.
To the point that I've never really listened to a whole episode of her podcast. And I listened to the one featuring you. And I thought, okay, I get it. So when we found out you were, willing to come here, we were very excited.
I'm very happy to be here.
It's been cool. And your team, shout out to your team. Everyone,
Thank you, guys.
Everyone you roll with is also just very high vibe and beautiful. And there's a sacredness to the way you guys carry yourselves, which is
I mean,
very appreciated.
Nowadays, I think that's what's missing, around our planet. We're missing that concept of unity and community. I think that's what we're missing, for any achievements. You need to have people where there's, respect, for whatever you're doing, you know. And respect for whatever we're trying to achieve is actually what comes to, solidify our relationship, and then give us this sense of we're fighting for something. And small, frustration and distractions and all of that don't really come to, take us, away from what we're really trying to do. And then that dedication is what I kind of appreciate in you guys. We've been working with me and all of that. I really appreciate that.
You also have a very multicultural team.
Yeah.
Everyone's from all over. Like, I didn't know he was from Colombia.
Yeah.
I was trying to place his accent yesterday. I'm like, I can't figure out where he's from. And I just didn't get a chance to ask him, But you got little light workers from all over the world doing this Avengers, super team kind of situation. It's very cool.
That's the word, Avengers, because I think that's how I look at our team. When our ancestors decided to bring this knowledge, our wisdom that we've been preserving out, it wasn't, the mission wasn't to just give it to a specific, group of people. How there's, those kind of racist way of viewing things and all of that, to the point where, humanity was so far away from reality, to the point where we even end up putting race in culture. I just don't understand how human we manage to do that. Culture is just a way of life. And a way of life, anyone can learn to live, certain way. And then when we came, we told everybody, this is a way of life of the Dogons. You want to learn and live like the Dogons, no problem. You're welcome. Our philosophy, our ideologies, our belief, our, the way we approach existence and all of that, you want to do that, no problem. So that kind of opened the gates for our mission around the world, to kind of reach everyone. We have all kind of, faces in, I don't want to say race, but we have all kind of faces.
I like that, different faces.
Different faces.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I think of it too. People talk about, and I, obviously I understand there are different types of human beings around the planet, but I've never thought there are more than one race. Just the way I was raised, there's one human race, and then people look different and have different cultures based on their geographic origins, right, and their history. But
that's right.
I'm very much on board with that. Yeah. For those that are unfamiliar with the Dogon culture and you and your work and your lineage, give us a bit of background, because this was new to me. Allison knew about the Dogon culture and was very excited to meet you and get connected, but she's the first person that I ever heard talk of you and your people. So give us a bit of background, like on your life and what the Dogon culture is, where you guys come from and so on.
Honestly, I didn't know. I think even in our culture back home, most of the people, all of our dignitaries and all of our royalties and, temple caretakers and wisdom keepers and all of that, we didn't even know that we are being studied, by the West. We didn't even know that. But somehow, we see people traveling to our lands, looking different, like we don't know them. They just happen to come. We hear there's a village here, there's community here. We just come. They come, they live with us, we share food. Our people are very hospitable. We really, really are very hospitable. We receive you. We don't know you, we receive you. Why? Because in our culture, we feel like a stranger coming to your house, a guest coming to your house, someone you don't know coming to your place, is almost like the divine world visiting you. It's like the God, sending someone to come visit you, to come check on you. That's how we view things. So around 1940s, 60s, there was this French people who traveled to our lands, just like, travel. So we thought they were just coming for, same thing, observe, live, share our stuff. But somehow they end up coming back to France, going back to France and then writing about us. because somehow from discussions, they found out, what we've been hiding and why we've been hiding and what we have and how powerful what we have that we're hiding is.
In terms of knowledge or
in
resources?
terms of knowledge and in terms of wisdom.
Okay.
In terms of archives, and all of that. So we have a lot that, we've been hiding, and then it's been hiding, simply through intense initiation process, rite of passage process, and all of that. So meaning they found out that they cannot really have access to what we have if they are not initiated, if they don't go through the rite of passage, which is very difficult. I will not advise, someone from the West to just get up and be like, I'm going to be initiated by the Dogon. It's very, very, very challenging, So they went back and wrote about everything that we have. So from there, the Dogon, became the focus of some of the studies in anthropology and history, and then all of that. Astrology as well. Yeah, we are a culture that is rooted in the Nile Valley. Our people, our ancestors, migrated, after few years, before the fall of the walls of Misra, the temples in the Nile Valley. So yeah, our ancestors migrated, and then somehow found a way to establish or resettle around, West Africa, and a way of protecting themselves from, the invaders and all of that. So those who were invading our people, were invading, Nile Valley, did not really have a way of crossing the desert because it was too hard for them. And then it's almost like, they can just kind of, disappear to trying to cross that because it's hard. It's not easy for the people coming to, challenge us. So then we end up establishing, resettling around West Africa. And at that moment, we didn't have the colonial countries that we have today, where like you talk about Mali, the Dogon in Mali, the Dagbam in Ghana, the Dagbam in Togo, the Dogon in Grumanche in Benin, in Burkina, in Chad, and all of that. So those countries did not exist. It was just like one big piece of land. We're talking about 3,000 years ago. 3,000 years ago, colonization has not really, been conceived to even think about, being born and then invade other people. So then we decided it was so simple for our ancestors to settle there because they have time now to resettle and then restart everything, reproduce that same culture. But then the wise men would be like, no, we don't want to rebuild the same gigantic culture that we built before, because that's actually what attracts the envy of the other groups of people to feel like they need to invade our temples in Nile Valley. So at this point, just let us build small structures, hide over here. It's hard to live here. It rains maybe, 5 times a year.
Really?
Yeah, our lands are so, our lands are so dry. We live in savannah. The desert, Sahara Desert, and us, we're not really far. So that was a way of protecting ourselves, through, geographically, using the geography to kind of protect ourselves. So then we were able to, they were able to restart everything and all of that. But, at the minimum, exposure, they didn't want to expose themselves, still maintaining all of the, project and researches and discoveries and everything continued. They didn't stop. Everything that was happening in the Nile Valley, they continued doing everything. And normally when people go in Egypt and then they look at the land and then they go in and then they see the temples, and then the temples for us, our ancestors at some point in time were called mystery schools, because that's you enter a temple to learn the universe, meaning like those were like the real universities. Like you go in the temple, you put yourself in some discipline, some, purity, and then some minds to be able to discover things. So then we have to do the same thing, But this time, the temple, we will not build big temples, but we didn't even build, we will use nature. What nature already built, then we will use that. And then every year, from the age of 8 to 14, young children are sent in the bush within that, designated place to kind of become like the natural temple, where we didn't build anything, nature already built it, for those children to learn how to, become, adults, young adults, and then become, useful in the society and all of that. So that's how our history went. And then we end up settling around, West Africa. But now, with colonization kind of happening, then, when the conference in Berlin happening in the 1800, they decided, those countries, European countries, decided to split Africa, and all of that. So they end up splitting Africa in the way that they even split, our culture. Where like the borders that they set up, they didn't take into consideration that we live in tribes. We live in groups of, people. They didn't take into consideration those things. So today, you may have a Dogon that is from Mali, and then another Dogon that's from Burkina Faso, as a citizen of Burkina Faso and a citizen from Mali, or a Dogon in Benin, who is also like a citizen of Benin, different from the Dogon in Togo, who is like a citizen of Togo. But somehow we all are the same roots all the way to Nile Valley.
Wow. Yeah. So there's been the colonization kind of created an artificial grid.
Yes.
They superimposed a map.
They imposed the map
on top of the native peoples who already had their own maps going that maybe weren't even as clearly defined. More like groups of tribes that live in different places according to the land calling them there.
Exactly. Right? I mean, we used to live the border, the natural borders were used, when we live, like the indigenous Africa lived, according to the natural borders, because a river can be the natural border between two groups of people. A chain of hills can be like a natural border between two groups of people. The forest can be like something like that too. So yeah, we live, in that way where we respected the natural borders, and we know that you don't cross to go hunt without the permission of the other group of people, or you don't cross to go fish without the permission of the other group of people. So with the colonization, that's what's bad about colonization. That's what kind of, the part where colonization is kind of evil, because it kind of separates you from your nature. It takes everything away from you, and then that's kind of the situation we're in right now at some point. And many people went through that too, many groups of people. But somehow, because of us having a new system of functioning, that is not the old system known to all of the civilizations and all of that, then that intelligence of creating a new system of preservation of wisdom and knowledge kind of help us, to continue to exist up until today, where they decide to send us out, to go and then talk about ourselves instead of, French professor coming and talking about the Dogon. The Dogon children can learn French, can learn English, and then go talk about the Dogon themselves.
Wow. What was your childhood like? Did you grow up in remote areas, or were you living in a city? What was happening when you were a kid?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, but I will just say something that is so simple. My childhood actually prepared me for this that I'm doing today. And I look at all of the suffering, all of the struggles, all of the challenges coming from, nature, family stuff and all of that, family dramas and everything, all of that, society, and everything. I look at all of those things and then saw myself, in some type of initiation, kind of preparing me for whatever I'm doing today. And honestly, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. it was a childhood where you don't know what your lunch is going to be, or even if that lunch is going to happen. You know, it would be better to sleep, with that food at night, but it's difficult to go throughout the day with that food. So lunch ended up becoming like the most important meal for, us when we were growing up. And I grew up with my grandmothers, I grew up with my grandmothers. Both of my grandmothers are healers, deep connected healers and highly gifted clairvoyants, both of them. So I grew up with them. And the time where you don't have food, grandmother just look at you, and then you look into her eyes, and the message is that, lunch is not going to happen. And next thing you know what to do. I was going in the bush just to get like mushrooms, or even go to other people's, farms. And then after they harvest, whatever was on the ground, I'll pick it up and put it together and come home and then present to my grandmother and be like, hey, I got some. And she will make it, I think I ate an egg, chicken egg. I ate an egg and feel like, wow, I just ate an egg. Wow. Like, you see, that's like the thing,
Wow.
right? To even eat an egg. I'm like, wow, I just ate an egg.
Wow, dude.
Wow. My grandma cooked an egg for me today. And that was like when I was, I think, 6 or 7. And it wasn't even like an egg that was like a good egg. That's the thing. Funny enough, it's like the chicken, kind of cover the eggs, and then few eggs hatches, and then few didn't get to hatch. And then, whatever is there, we can cook it. Instead of throwing away, we can cook it. And then I get an egg, a whole egg to eat by myself. So that was like big for me. That was like, maybe over here, that would be like offering a child like an iPhone, or offering your child like iPad, and, or video game. That was like big for me then. And I hunted a lot, hunted rats, fish, just for lunch, And it kind of, prepared me, if I can say that, because even managing today, talking about, how even like I'm leading this mission, this, work that I'm doing, the way I'm conducting it, is because of everything I went through, when being like a child. But I don't think anyone will see me today and think like, an egg was like gold for me, So yeah, the childhood wasn't easy, but I don't look at it and make it be like a situation of trauma for me. I actually advise people, even when people get readings from me, or counsel and all of that, I tell them, I always repeat, whatever happened in your childhood, use it. There's a reason why nature allow it to happen. There's a reason why life allow it to happen. It might not be bad, it might not be good, but somehow there's a reason. But use it, and then make that become the foundation, the very foundation of how you will want to become in life, and then stand on it. Make it become the podium that you will stand on to be able to, achieve something. And one good thing is, like, I don't want to go back to that. I don't want my children to live that life. But somehow I would want, myself not to forget that I was here before getting to be here. And then from that, that's like a good lesson. And then it end up become like the foundation, the motivation that allow me to, move forward. Some people can go through something like that, maybe half of that, through their childhood, and feel like it's a trauma. But I'm not going to call it a trauma. It's not a traumatic thing for me. I learned how to look at it, and then initiation built me to kind of see any suffering, any type of suffering, any type of challenge as the foundation of achieving something big. Because with that challenge, with that suffering, it's going to be difficult for a human being to achieve stuff. We see it in nature, and then we just have to copy that.
So you mentioned your grandmothers being wise initiates. And from what I understand, your father was a really renowned Dogon priest and elder.
Yeah.
What was that like for you as a kid?
He was traveling a lot. If I may say that, the only time we got to spend one whole year with our father, where he's not traveling abroad, he's not traveling for his mission, for his work, and we get to see him, spend time with him like a whole year, where you wake up and then your father is at home. And all of that was 2007 and 2008, he transitioned. And that's when he moved, because he moved from America to settle back home in Africa, in Burkina Faso, and in 2006, end of 2006. So 2007, we had him. And then by July 2008, he transitioned. So that question is one of the other situations, over here in the West. My father wasn't around. That become like a reason why I'm failing. My father wasn't around. That become the reason why I shouldn't be better than, my father, or better than, myself. But we, growing up in Africa, we didn't have that privilege. You just want to be, better than your father no matter what. Even if he was around, you still want to be better than him. He's not around, you still want to be better than him. He's good parent, good father, you still want to be better than him. He's a, so-so father, you still want to be better than him. At the end of the day, the foundation of the education is looking forward. They're using the, past to kind of, build, whatever you want to achieve, ahead of you. And we have a saying that, to build a new rope, you have to look at the old one. And then looking at the old ropes, we learn how to build like the new ropes and all of that. And, he wasn't around, he was traveling a lot. Yeah, none of us really grew up, having him like, and that's happened with me too now. I have to travel a lot. I have to travel a lot and, leave my home and then just keep traveling. But at the same time, I'm trying to learn from my father's situation and then create some balance where, like, I have 3 months, 6 months, I can just stay home and then spend time with, family and all of that. And, which allow me to be learning, to continue learning as well, because elders want us to still be there and learning. So it allowed me to do that. Yeah, so it was amazing how I end up, standing or trying to fit my father's shoe, because I look at the way he even educated me and the way he guided me. And what people don't know about me is that once the decision was made by our tribe to send her to school and all of that, colonial school, to learn the European ways of doing things, or Western ways of doing things, I was good at it. Because everything they were teaching was too easy. Already grown, I'm going through, hardship that's not even like, you have to figure out things, to go in the bush, in the river, set up traps, to get like a rat and all. You have to have a big, intelligence to be able to do that, kind of calculate everything. So I was good at school, and I'm an accountant. I'm a graduate in accounting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that's what people will not know about me. Like, I'm a graduate of accounting at university, accounting. But once my father passed away, I saw it be like, when he guided me to do accounting, I love it. I'm like, yes, I love, the challenge of the numbers and, all of that. And after that, he's like, stop. If you finish accounting now, go study some literature. I'm like, whoa, I love numbers. Literature would be like dealing with letters and all of that, So I did that, I did want to study, some, literature and everything and all of that. So I saw him already guiding me and making sure, like, even if anything happened to him, there's going to be someone to stand where he was standing. So even that makes him like a great father that I have to honor today. I have to honor today. I have to respect him for that, because even though he wasn't 100%, of the time with us, but somehow he managed to guide, our life in the way that, we end up making it to this point.
At what point were you ordained to carry on his work?
At the age of 12, I was called in front of an elder, and that was in Togo. So that's where my mom is from. My father is from Burkina Faso. My mom is from Togo. That elder was the first one to tell my uncles that this boy, whatever you want this boy to achieve, his family has a bigger mission for him that he's going to achieve. He was going to become a priest. And everybody's like, what do you mean he's going to become a priest? We want him to go to school and become, a doctor, become a minister of the country, politician, whatever they wanted me to become. It's like, well, I think I'm a doctor, but just a natural doctor, doctor dealing with nature, using nature. From there, me, myself, I started kind of thinking at the age of 12, I started thinking like, oh, what does that mean to be a priest? That's amazing. Like being born in a lineage of priesthood, I have to question like, what's that about? What's that like? And when my father passed away in 2008, 3 months after he passed away, that's when I was called by the elders in the bush. Your father passed away. He was on a mission. He didn't finish the mission. Do you know what he was doing? Like, yeah, I follow him, I learn. Can you do what he was doing? I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do that. That's his life. He's like, well, you the next one. I'm like, what do you mean I'm the next one? You can't just wake up and then be the next one into something,
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, that's what the divination is saying. I'm like, what? Yeah, so 3 months later, after he passed away, 3 months after he passed away, I got, ordained, now you're standing there. And then I think 6 months later, I got my visa coming to America for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is the foundation of carrying on his work sharing the wisdom of the Dogon culture at large in the world? I mean, is that kind of the core mission, this information that has been held close to the chest of your peoples for thousands of years with good reason?
Yes.
And then the elders, through their various means, determined, okay, now the world needs this teaching, and it's on you to bring it out.
To bring that. And,
wow.
I think that's what I'm saying, like your birth already decides how your life will be. And most of the time when we grow up, we end up allowing, life challenges, like the challenges in life, we end up allowing them to settle the distrust, settle the lack of confidence or low self-esteem within. And then we end up feeling the challenge of life. And then we feel like life is too heavy and life does not like us. But I'm happy I didn't go that way. And I'm happy I went in the way that like life, you bring me challenge, I'm going to hold the horns of those challenge and then I show you that I can go through. When the mission started, it's a long mission, a mission that's very old. When you look at Nile Valley and everything that happened in with the civilization Nile Valley, everything they build and they achieve and the enlightenment, the awareness and power and all of that. The same thing, missions were sent then across the world. When you look at the pyramids around the world that you see, You look at the big structures that you see around the world. We look at those structures as or portals, like gates, the gate of the gates. So, between the earth and then the rest of the celestial system and bodies and all of that. So the mission of the mystery schools then in the Nile Valley was to set up those portals everywhere that, was identified to be good to kind of create that connection with the rest of the celestial bodies. So that was done. So every other group of people benefited from that culture of for the Pharaoh giving the order for people to travel and then share and help build those mystery places and, mysterious, things and all of that to see what manifestation will happen. So those kind of mission was what originally we called the Exodus Army. The Exodus Army is about, taking that knowledge, that wisdom, that was, if I have to translate, I will translate it into like Exodus Army, So it's taking that those achievements, and then taking it to other people, and then allowing other people to benefit from it. Because, one power benefiting from a knowledge cannot benefit the whole universe. That creates like a big imbalance on Earth, and then in our humanity and all of that. Today we have G20, G7, G this, and all of that, and the other ones don't matter. Other countries don't matter, and all of that. And then we, at the same time, trying to say that we want poverty to finish, we want peace, and all of that. So we cannot accept, we cannot, gain peace if we haven't given the means to the other people to rise up and then hold, something, in their hand that allow them to feel like they count, because that's actually what creates the concept of revolution, in people. Because I want to be like you, but you're not allowing me to be like you. So what can I do? Well, I will try to see your weaknesses and destroy you first before I can get to be like you, or maybe we all can be at the same, so that's like a human thing, So the Pharaoh didn't want that. The Pharaoh saw that it was better to send everything to everybody to benefit from it. And then he traveled around China, Australia, everywhere he traveled. South America he traveled. Those archives are still, in the temples, how the mission were organized. So in this new area, the prophecy around the 50s was that everything we've been preserving can be lost. And it's needed to be invested or reinvested. It needed to be shared. It needed to travel again. Meaning they were even seeing it as another migration that will be coming on us, on our people. And, as time goes, they keep, checking and then seeing what's going to happen to find out that, a few years ago, 30 years ago, to find out that it's not going to be us as a group of people migrating, but we're going to have to allow our knowledge to migrate. We're going to have to allow the wisdom to migrate. And then that's the only way we can protect it. We can invest it in people and then protect it and preserve it. Otherwise, if we don't allow it to migrate, then the forces that are coming are not going to be like the forces that we were running away from before we settled in around the desert. Those forces, just a button, someone to press a button, and then a whole village can be destroyed. And that's like a big chunk of, wisdom and knowledge that's kind of taken away. And as I'm talking now, today, in Mali, in Burkina, in Chad, in Niger, where all of those original settlement kind of, happen, everybody's struggling. Everybody has to run away from their villages because there's terrorist activities where they find gold, they find diamond, uranium, and all of that. And then the superpower countries are digging. And if you don't leave, you are kind of dead, So now all of the villages have to leave. A lot of people, you can check it on the news and everything. People have to run away from their villages and others so that they can exploit the land and take those natural resources and everything. And then that's actually what they were saying. They were projecting like it's going to happen. And lucky enough, 30 years ago, the mission already started. And then now we have temples in England. We have temples in Canada. We have temples in America. We still have temples around Africa there that, we maintain in the cities. But our temple life in the city is very complicated. The temple life in the village, in the bush is the best, but we still also try to buy lands, buy some, important lands and original lands and all of that to try to kind of, restore, rebuild the walls, rebuild those temples and all of that. So that's how that mission kind of started.
Wow.
And we're doing it now too.
Wow, it's cool. It's interesting, the aspect of sharing this ancient wisdom with the intention of all of humanity benefiting from that, and also serving as an act of preservation for the wisdom, because if it just stays within these various tribal peoples in these various areas, it's going to be squashed out by the imperialism coming for the resources and creating all of this violence and territorial aggression. A certain cultural conception here that I guess could broadly be referred to as cultural appropriation, or people that are into learning indigenous ways and teachings and sharing that information, many of whom get a lot of criticism because if you're not originally from that indigenous culture, you have no business sharing that elsewhere. And I always just kind of look at this, and it's a nuanced problem, right? Because you have someone who maybe doesn't actually honor and respect the original culture, and they just want to capitalize on that as a commodity, right? So I'm sure there's an element of that, but I think there are also a lot of well-meaning people who want to serve humanity in the ways that you speak, that are drawing from wisdom from different cultures in a way that is authentic and integrous, and in the intention of benefiting all people. So as someone who's not from the United States and not from Western culture, how do you see cultures like yours and others from around the world, indigenous cultures and their ways, practices, knowledge being shared? What's your perspective on this idea of cultural appropriation?
That's the problem in this mission. That's the problem that we have. And let's, forget the concept of hate or the concept of jealousy or the concept of rivalry, why this person get to do this and not me. But, America is built, I'm sorry to say that, but America is built on the concept of being the number one. And normally in America, every human being who was born in America, grew up in America, is educated to think that no matter where they go, no matter where they find themselves on the face of the planet, they are the number one. And, the chosen one. That concept, is big because it runs in American families for generations. To the point where, like, even in American the reason why in America families have problems is because even in the family, the mother thinks she needs to be the number one, the father thinks he needs to be the number one, the son thinks he needs to be the number one, and then the daughter thinks she needs to be the number one, and so and so and so and so. To the point where, like, at some point, the family will clash on an emotional level, on a physical level, and then lineage level, we all are together. It's my brother, it's my sister, it's my father, it's my mom. But on an emotional level, everybody's broken. Now, when you are broken like this, and then you travel to a group of people who have a structure that value the community, that value the togetherness. That's kind of against individualism. That's against, selfishness and all of that. Then you will have to struggle too. The struggle will be like you will try to fit in that community. You will try to fit in that reality. And in trying to fit in it, it's going to demand for you to be so humble and so disciplined. Something that somehow the American upbringing, we don't give to people. We don't give people, the concept of humility and discipline. And once you don't give people that, and then they travel around the world, America is not the end of the world. They will travel around the world and discover other realities. So when they travel around the world and then they meet cultures where like family is kept strong, family ties are very strong, everything is done in family, and then everything is done in the village, and everybody, when there's something, everybody come to do it and all of that. No one will call and say like, oh yeah, I have work, I'm not gonna be able to come. Everybody drop whatever they're doing and then just converge and go do one thing that is for the well-being of the member of the community. Then the person coming from the Western society will have to learn how to adapt. And in that adaptation, you face the challenge. So when people came and trying to learn from indigenous people, not just us, I will kind of assume every indigenous culture. When you come and trying to learn from indigenous people, we only expect two things: humility and discipline. Because to talk about discipline is something that comes from the self-respect. So when you put humility and the self-respect together, that's what brings what we call community. That's what brings people. That's what takes people away from individualism, and then try to build together and stay together and all of that. So in my culture, in my way of doing things, the way my father started, the way I'm continuing with it, I'm very rigid, very, very rigid when it comes to, the initiate or the student or the person trying to learn from me, coming and then learning. You're going to have to stand on those pillars. You're going to have to learn how to be humble. You're going to have to learn that you're going to have to start from somewhere to go to reach somewhere. And you're going to have to learn the self-respect. It's not about me. I don't need you to respect me. So when you try to act like you're respecting me, sometimes I just tell people, focus on respecting yourself first. I have a lot of work to do to respect myself too. So do that. And then in doing the self-respect job, you end up focusing on the real matters of your life. You focus on what's real in your life and all of that, and what's real in your community, what's real in your family, what's real on earth. And when you force the visitor who comes to be with you, learn from you, you force them to adopt that, they will struggle for some moment. But once they adjust to that, that's it. You got like a very good ambassador of your culture. You got a very good and great ambassador for your culture, for your spirituality, for your people and all of that. But once you don't do that, and then you just open the gate and then you allow the people to be the way they want to be, that they will take everything from you. They will come and then they will do it. But in any culture, in any spirituality, any system, there's going to be like the, dissidents. Dissidents will kind of have to happen, and then when that happen, you will have, that's why we have many many churches for the same, belief. And that's why we have many, Islam practices, Muslim practices for the same religion and all of that. And that's why we have, many Buddhist ways of doing things for the same person, the same belief and all of that. Because at some point, the human fail to submit themselves to the demands of the authenticity of what they're trying to learn. And then when you fail to do that, then we end up having one reality that we cannot, kind of look away, because it's a reality of the original and then the fake, or the reality of the authenticity and then the copy.
Right.
We end up having that.
Right.
Now, an intelligent person will know that this is authentic, this is original. I can be from a Dogon lineage and still be fake if I didn't take the steps that it needs to learn and then get wherever I am. If I didn't get all the preparation, just like you can come in my culture and then take all of the steps that I needed and then be ordained, and then you can become like the Dogon more than I. You can become like the authentic more than I. So this is the problem. Culture does not have race. Culture is a language. Culture is a way of being, a lifestyle. And within that lifestyle, anyone can learn with dedication. Anyone can learn to live that lifestyle. With discipline, humility, anyone can learn to be that lifestyle. So for us, you are from America, you come to my land and then you learn and then you become, you follow all of the things that the culture demands. You speak my language. That's it. You are a Dogon. That's it. Because once you learn to speak my language, there's nothing I can hide from you again. You end up learning how to even become like authentic. Because even things that we'll be doing, even if I want to hide it from you, I'm not going to be able to hide it because you speak my language. There's no other language I'm going to speak. Yeah. Probably I will speak your language and then you speak my language. So that's the problem. And this mission, I impose, people who come to learn to have that. I'm not imposed, actually, I humbly impose people to understand that the concept of humility and self-respect is what makes indigenous people. When you travel to us, that's what makes us us. But when you travel and then you don't want to go through that channel, then you lose everything. So do we have people out there now who are authentic? Yes. In what they're doing? Yes. It doesn't matter what indigenous culture they are holding their hand and all of that, but yes. But do we have people who are copies and then panhandlers and trying to punt? Yeah, we have that too. Now, reality is this, right? What comes around goes around. In the old time, before the rise of modern society, culture and spirituality was more than gold. Was more than gold. Like, that was the wealth, to have a culture, to have a language that you speak that's like, tells you everything, to have a spirituality. That was like the gold. That's what everybody was traveling around. People travel around the world just for that, But nowadays, we change it. We change everything in the way like the gold becomes something else, and then the culture, is left behind. And people can just come and then take the practices of an indigenous group of people and then leave the culture behind. And then come, in the West and make it a commodity.
Right. So, okay, yeah. So the culture is, as you said, not about the race, it's about the way of life, right? But the way of life runs much deeper than just putting on certain garments and wearing a special necklace and burning this type of incense, and kind of the accoutrement, the rituals and the tools of a culture don't necessarily indicate that there's a full adoption of the culture. It's like kind of picking and choosing some of that and commodifying it.
Yeah, like in a salad bar. You go there, you pick what you want.
The all-you-can-eat salad bar.
Yeah, you pick what you want, and then the rest, you don't want it. So culture cannot function like that. And then nowadays, that's what we see. We see people, with all of the, look, the outside. but the inside has not changed yet. But the outside is the one that is kind of changing, almost like the other people have to see me that way.
It's like a role that someone can adopt.
Exactly. And then that's where we talk about self-respect. You have to respect yourself in that way, you know. So they, you know, my father used to say that when stupidity is rewarded, you know, wisdom will come worthless.
You just described America in our current state. I mean, I love America, you know, but like, wow. I mean, you just turn on the news here and it's like, I mean, it's not just America, it's all over the world. Most Western cultures.
Western cultures.
It's unbelievable. But I think you're pointing to some really valuable teachings, and that is, you know, the principle of humility and self-respect. If those are intact inherently in your character, I think one of the byproducts of that is authenticity. Right? Because humility gives you an understanding of who you really are, right? If you're real. Like that's one thing Alice and I have noticed about you. And one of the ways she described you is like really powerful man, carries all this wisdom, but he's a regular guy. He's down to earth. He's humble, you know? And I think it's a really important part of that, because I don't know if you've heard of this term, but it has more to do with kind of the gurus of India and whatnot, right? Like the word guru, the fallen guru syndrome, right? Where it's like someone will amass a body of knowledge and maybe have some true spiritual gifts and powers. But for some reason, humility eludes them, so they start believing their own hype and becoming corrupted and inauthentic, and in some cases even exploitive of other people and abusive of other people, right? And we over here call that just what I call it's the fallen guru syndrome, where it's like somebody wrote some beautiful books, they had some beautiful teachings, they got a following, they became famous, got some notoriety, and next thing you know, they're abusing people and taking advantage of people, and they become all about money and fame and all this stuff. And I always think, how does that happen? You know, it's like, if you have these spiritual gifts, can't you see that you're becoming full of shit?
Exactly.
But if you don't have humility, you can't see yourself, so you don't know.
You can see it. Yeah, that's the problem in this work nowadays, because I don't know what we're gonna leave to our children. And everybody wants to be something, they accept what they are. And then the self-knowledge, like to know the self and to know why, where, how about yourself as a human. Because normally in my culture, at the age of 7, you're supposed to start questioning yourself. You're supposed to be asking those questions. Those are very existential questions. You know, why? Mom, why did you give me this name? Dad, why did you give me this name? What for? Why do you ask me to go to school? Did you go? Those are questions that any 7-year-old child could start asking to the parent. And then there already, the person is building the foundation to know themselves, to know their role in the community, to know their role in, you know, on the face of the planet. But many of us didn't get that chance to be in the situation where we got to ask the questions and then we get the answers to those questions. Most of the time, questions we ask brought more questions. We ask questions and then the answer they give you, we even get you to go like to be buried more into questions and all of that. And then that end up becoming like, okay, then everybody will have to develop their own personality, you know. Being a priest, being a healer, is a way of life. Being a shaman is a way of life. Being a guru is a way of life. And that does not take away the fact that you're just a human being full of shit. You know, you caca. I mean, with every wisdom that you and I are sharing now, this discussion, I love this discussion because it's almost like that's what most of the teachers need to be letting people know your disciple coming to learn from you. They need to understand that. They need to understand that you are a human being. Even Jesus uses bathroom. Even Mahomet goes to the bathroom. Buddha goes to the bathroom. Unless they're not human beings, unless they are not in this physical body that you and I we're in. So that means we are just full of shit. Almost like 70% of our body is just full of shit, So we are the only beings that eats things that are dead. So meaning our body, to maintain our body, take care of our body, feed our body, give it energy, regenerate everything in our body, something has to die. Something has to die for that to happen. Whether it's vegetables, whether it's fruit, or whether it's whatever it might be, something has to suffer. Something has to suffer before we survive. And then yet, we want the rest of the world to look at us as we were just like pure lights. And I love that, Alison. I know Alison saw that in me. A lot of people see that in me. I get that a lot, saying he just full of knowledge, but also just full of human being shit. He's just a simple, normal guy trying to do his thing and then have a goal in his life and trying to achieve it. And that's what I do, because I'm not going to, even when you come to my home, my house, I'm not hiding anything from you. Everything will just be there. We eat together. My mom will cook for you. We eat whatever I'm eating, you eating it, and all of that. Anywhere we stop to eat, and all of that. So that's what we need to kind of, change as the people kind of being like the pathfinders and changing people's life and trying to affect people's life and all of that. We have to let them know that, it's not about becoming, an angel, because angels don't live on earth. Angels, that's why they have wings. And their wings, when you have wings, you're not supposed to be living on earth. You're going to be living somewhere else. The earth will be like a wrong place for you, So we just have to teach people to be human. That's it.
I think in my experience, one of the most valuable teachings that I've had is the awareness of the different traps that come at your different levels of development. And one that was really impressed upon me was the trap of ego. Right? Taking credit for the spiritual progress that you've made or the talents that you have. And I'm like, I'm sure I've done it, many times probably, right? But not to the point of pathology, at least to my awareness. If I missed something, anyone let me know. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I've always felt like a regular guy, even though I've made a lot of advancement over the years. Like, I really have made a lot of progress.
Exactly.
I have a much higher consciousness than I once was, and I think I'm getting higher, right?
Yep.
But I had a teacher once, and he said, you got to watch out for the trap, man. Ego, if you're not aware of how the ego operates, this is just the vernacular that was used with me. I'm sure you have your own way of saying that, but if you're not aware of it and you're not in the observer-witness perspective, like what you get when you meditate, right? You see, I'm thinking thoughts. Oh, I'm having feelings. There's someone who's watching that phenomenon, right? He said, if you don't keep in touch with the one who's watching, the ego is going to come and start thinking you're a spiritual giant, right? You know when it really got me one time? This is actually, I'm going to be honest, this is how I learned this. I went to India on a 21-day silent retreat. And I was with some true spiritual masters, these Indian mystics. And one of the things that we were doing is being initiated into a practice called giving diksha. It's like you lay hands on someone's head and they have a kind of spiritual experience, right? And so you go through this training and whatnot. And I didn't know that lesson at the time. So I went to India. I came back wearing the robes and the beads and saying namaste to everyone. Namaste. My ego took on a role, right? That wasn't the back to authenticity. I'm not Indian. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm from California.
Just say hello.
Yeah.
Instead of namaste,
so I came back doing all the things, right? And what had happened was that my ego is kind of sitting there and goes, we found an identity to grab onto to elevate our self-perception, right?
Yes.
And that was one of the times when my teacher was like, you lost the plot. Here you
Yeah.
go to India to become more spiritual.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did. But also the ego was like, oh, we're going to grab onto this.
Yeah.
Now you're special, right? Now you got the
Yeah.
beads and the thing. And I got my ass kicked when I came back. And thank God. It was harsh to learn. It was painful to be deflated in the way that I was. But thank God that happened. It was a huge lesson for me. And don't believe your own hype, you know.
No,
It's like,
I mean, that's
stay human, man. Just be down to earth. You know?
we have a saying in my place that no trees can see its own roots. There's no tree that can say that it kind of sees its own roots. You always have to make sure the roots are strong enough, clean enough. So for that to happen, it's gonna have to take another tree, another person, to be able to see your roots and all of that. And then that brings the check and balance in your own evolution.
There's the accountant speaking.
That's an accountant speaking. You know, so then that brings that, right? Where like the other human can be the reason why you look at yourself and then educate yourself and fix and keep moving forward. The event that we had yesterday was so powerful. After the event, we spent all night. We went to sleep like 2 a.m. or so. We were just talking. So powerful to the point where I have to question myself. I went and sat down outside. I'm like, what did I learn here? What was the teaching that all of these people came today to teach me? But everybody came, over 50 people came to sit and listen and go through a ceremony that, you know, I will be the one leading. But after all, I have to sit in my own solitude, come and think like, well, these people came to teach me. Life.
That's it.
What are you here to
That's
teach
it. See, and if you didn't have the self-awareness of your tree's roots, right? At the end of the day, your ego could be inflated and you're like, I'm the man.
Exactly.
Everyone came, I got all this attention, everyone's bowing down to me, and that's it.
That's the trap.
Yeah.
Once people start, I mean, even people I work with, when we have a way that we greet each other, and I feel so uncomfortable anytime that happens. I'm like, hey, I'm not in my work right now. I'm just a human like you. I know you respect me as a teacher, but just, hey, what's up? How you doing? Hello, bye. Do our thing. And the ego, that's the one.
What's the Dogon terminology in your language for ego? How do you guys contextualize or say that word or that concept?
Yeah, the concept will be the someone who care for themselves, but not for the rest. Meaning like in the most selfish way.
So it's like a self-centeredness rather than an other-centeredness.
Yeah, if I say self-centeredness, that would be, you know, some people in English might perceive it wrong, but it's more so like you are focusing more on what other people would think about you.
Okay.
You centered on yourself to the point where like, what will other people think about me, you know, and all of that. So then we end up using the concept of, you know, you don't have girma. And then girma would be like, originally that word would be like a ga, meaning a ka, and then ma. You don't have the justice of the spirit. Like ka would be like the spirit. And then ma would be like the justice. You know, so your spirit does not have justice, does not have a way of, you know, doing its self-justice, checking itself, you know. So already at that moment, you are someone that people might be like, he's a crazy person. He's a mental sick person. That's how you go.
Okay.
You know? And
that's great.
I lived with my father.
I think that's a good standard to set. Like if somebody is too deeply identified with their ego, they are crazy. And if I do it, I'm crazy. You know what I mean? You're not in your right mind when you're being motivated by that part of yourself.
Yes. That's what it is, you know. My father lived with him and I saw his life with all of the power and all of the knowledge that he has and the power of clairvoyance that he had. You wake up and see him, and it's just like simple food, simple life, simple, rigidity that he follows. And then the rest is about, just living life, being a human being, being a father, being a member of family, being a member of community, and all of that. But once he finds himself in the situation, of work, then he's working. I cannot, wake up and then be like a priest 24 hours a day. I cannot wake up and then be a healer 24 hours a day. Because at the end of the day, I still have to go in the bathroom, take off my shirt, my clothes, and shower. That's something that can take like 10 minutes to 20 minutes. I need to still go use bathroom, sit on the toilet. It's the same thing. I need to sleep and all of that. So there's a lot of problems in our people's mind now. When I say our people, I'm talking about us, reclaiming some cultures and some ways of life, some indigenous ways of doing things. And that problem is like we're making it a commodity. We're making it something that can be sold. Don't just blame, the people who are coming from the West and seeing us and they say they want something. Don't blame those people. For those people, the value that they see in us is a value. They respect that value. That's why they travel to me. If you travel to my place to learn, it's because you saw some value in what I have in my place. And I'm going to have to be the one to be able to show you that indeed it's a value. By the way, I'm going to be giving it to you. But if I make that value a commodity, where like, you give me this, I give you this, you do this, I give you this, then I make it, valueless. It will lose its value. And then that's me being responsible, teaching you that whatever you came to get can be sold, can be, is whatever, can be done, used for whatever reason, you want it to be used for. And that's what we're doing as wrong as the people in our indigenous cultures. We're selling the culture. We started selling it. And I'm saying it with all honesty. I'm not, hiding anything. Because when you have self-respect, you will know that you are selling your culture. You will know that you are selling your ancestors' ways. You will know that, people coming, instead of the person spending 7 years before they get to spending time with you, learning from you from day 1 to 7 years before you can get to call them a priest or a shaman or a healer or what. If the person comes and live for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then at the end you tell them they are a king, they are a queen, they are a shaman, they are a priestess, they are a priest, they are this, that's your fault. That means me try to hold the authenticity of what I gained from my parents, my father. I look at you and I know that the person paid you something to make them be what they want to be. So you're selling the person the dream. And then it's a dream of a culture that you're selling to the person. But that dream, the person will come back in the West and trying to now manifest that dream to realize that it was just a dream. It's not going to work. Would the person go back? No, they already spend a lot. They're not going to go back. What would they do? They will embellish it, build around it, make it become something that the West will take. And that's one thing that I personally, don't do. I don't bend my culture for people. I make people bend down for my culture because that's the only way you can benefit from it. And everywhere I go to, I just tell people, I'm like, this is how we're going to do it. But what about doing this? So I'm like, this is how I saw my father did it. This is how I saw my elders in my temple did it. I'm not going to do it, not because I'm in America or I'm in England, I'm in, Russia, that I'm going to do it different. No, we're going to do it the way I saw my people doing it. And that's the same way we're going to do it. So once we, as the indigenous people, once we come to wake up to that reality and build the gates to protect, ourselves, and then make sure that we protect the people coming to us, because it's danger. It's very dangerous for someone born in, I don't know, somewhere in Kansas City, and then you get up, and then you're like, oh, I discover light. I'm going to, China. I'm going to India. I'm going to South America to discover something. And then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, or you do a few trips, and then you come back, and you want to stand as a representative of, not even representative, you want to stand as an owner of whatever you learn from those people, you saw from those people. It's so dangerous for the people who did not get a chance to travel to those places. It's so dangerous because you don't play with spirituality, and you don't play with any type of spirituality. So there's some type of spirituality that are like engraved in the memory of the earth in nature, meaning like it's so old that you cannot change it. It's too old, so old to the point where like your life, the experience, your life expectancy, like what you lived, since you've been born and everything you've been living, cannot even will just be like maybe a grain of sand on the beach. So there's a lot of things that, we take people step by step. You have to take people step by step to reach, certain things, like baby step. You have to start from somewhere. But once you just give the people, you expose certain things to the people and all of that, that's like a big problem that you're causing for the person. You're not protecting the person. But as a good teacher, I have to protect my student. I have to protect my initiate. There's some food that my initiate may want to eat, but I will tell them, don't eat that food because it's not going to be good for you. Even though I know he's hungry. I prefer that student standing with hunger, with that patience, until we find whatever he can eat, and then it's going to be good for him. Same thing. I'm not going to let, a child eat something that I know is going to be bad for them, and then later on they're going to be sick. You have to, you have to guide. And that's where we kind of, even have to be calling ourselves pathfinders, because we have to find pathways, to get people to elevate, to get people to reach where they're trying to reach, but not just go with, the flow of things, So if you come to learn from me, and then, another brother come to learn from me, another sister come to learn from me, you guys have different destinies, different background, different experience, different past lives. You guys, everything's different. You're not identical. So the same thing cannot apply to all of you. The same thing cannot apply to all of you. So everybody will have to take responsibility through that culture, through the wisdom, the knowledge of the culture. Everybody will have to take the responsibility of owning it. And after you own it and then you give it respect, then it's going to work into you and make you who you're gonna be, and who the other person is gonna be. But you cannot use like the intelligence of our culture, that you cannot use our culture and be like the other person. No. Like all of the wisdom that, our ancestors preserved and everything, once you receive it and you really put your hard work and dedication for it, with all honesty, all intellectual and spiritual honesty, it's going to make you be that being that you vow that you're coming to be on earth. It's not going to make you be like me, because that's not the vow that you made when you were coming on earth, unless the coincidence will be like, okay, we made the same vow. Unless that kind of coincidence, Now, if, there's no coincidence, then you just identical, and whatever you learn from us, that's what you're going to be. So it's almost like pouring, water in a bottle of Coca-Cola does not make that water Coca-Cola. It's just water in a bottle of Coca-Cola. Unless we force that bottle of water, change it, take that bottle of water through the process of changing and all of that, then we're gonna have to colorate the water and put all of the aromas, and that's what people do with spirituality. Or you don't want to pour water in a bottle of Coca-Cola and sell it as Coca-Cola. That would be so dishonest, And then the same way that we kind of view how when people travel, even in our culture, we have people who are ready to sell the culture. And that's what I'm saying. Don't, just blame the Westerners traveling to Africa, traveling to South America, traveling to Asia, traveling to those places where there's still some, integrity, towards nature and towards the invisible. Don't blame them. You have to blame the people themselves. I'm not very well represented around the world or in some communities because I'm that kind of person where I don't give you, you have to work for it. I don't give you, you have to work for it. I make you work for it. It doesn't matter who you are or what you're coming with. I have people who come and then in their houses or in their places, people bow to them and all of that. But you come in my temple, with my people, we're like, well, here you take off your shoes here. Here you take off your shirts and we give you a lapa to wear. It's a traditional thing to wear. Here you have to kneel down and then clap to this power. Here, then you go sit. We give you all of that. We have to give you all of that. But that at the same time teaches you how to teach people one day when you're going to be standing where, we are standing. So.
Thank you.
No problem.
Beautiful.
I have to thank you for having me here. Sharing. I like these discussions.
I love it.
We can keep talking, and
it's fun, dude. I got a lot more questions. I hope you had your Wheaties this morning.
Yeah.
Okay, so much ancient wisdom has been lost around the world from all indigenous cultures, right?
Yes.
And it seems to me that much of that wisdom has not only been lost, but it's been repressed. And history has been rewritten.
Yep.
About so many things in so many ways. The nature of the universe, the nature of the human experience, who we are, where we came from, what we're doing here, all the things, right? And yesterday, you were talking about a couple different representations of that, and I'd like to go into both a bit if we can.
Okay.
One was around the calendar and the way that we keep time, which really spoke to me because I struggle with. Allison's like, see, now we know why you can't read a calendar. You can't do time. And I was like, I fucking knew it. We got duped. This isn't how time and calendars actually work. No wonder I'm always out of sync with it. I'm right,
Yeah.
And the other one was language.
Yeah.
So maybe let's go into time and, specifically the Dogon way of keeping time and when your years and months start, how you break down the day. I think that this is fascinating, and I think that it's no accident that human beings are so confused. If we don't even know what time it is, according to the cosmos, right? We don't know what week it is, what season it is, where we are in the universe is all been obscured. Where do we even start? So maybe a good place to start is like, what time is it?
Yes. Let me... These are things that, when you share, maybe now in the modern world, we are allowed to share those kind of things because those archives have been protected, sealed and protected, but sealed and protected for the fact that there was a time where when you speak about time, and that time is not what Vatican decided, or that time is not what the power ruling decided, your head gets chopped off. You get beheaded for that. People were killed for that. for just talking about time, just speaking about things that, the one who's in power is like, no, you don't talk about it. I'm the one in power. Everybody follow my time. When the time, that we're using in the modern society, modern world, the whole world nowadays, the time that we're using was kind of introduced. It was supposed to be so perfect. It was told. Then that was the time where science and the Vatican religion, science and religion worked together. That was that time. And that was the time where the so-called witches and, wizards were being killed. That was the time where the medicine men and the medicine women were being burned at stake, every Sunday. That was around that time. And those that were being burned and killed just because they were trying to say the truth about reality and the truth about our divine existence. And that is almost like challenging the one trying to represent themselves as the divine representation in humanity. So then the partnership has to exist between religion and science then. And they came up with all of that. How can we do that? The calendar we follow today is not a calendar that's just like, people don't know what it is. Like the leaders don't know what it is. They know that it's not the real thing. But that calendar was introduced as an anti-spiritual movement because the human being cannot worship someone that they somehow call a god or a goddess or a tree in nature while the Vatican exists, someone that represents God on earth exists. So then every human being then around that time in the history of the book, in the book of history, I meant to say, everyone then was obliged to worship the ruler in the Vatican. You don't worship your plants. You don't worship your medicine. You don't worship your village divinity. You don't worship your village entities. That would be against the Vatican law and the religion then. So then they made it, so big that, they have to come up with a reason to start a calendar. Before that, the Julian calendar was the one that was being used. And at some point, the calculations were wrong. There was a time in a human life, especially in Europe, where time was counted different. Where like when you live in the mountains, the way you count time is different from when you live in the valley. And then the one living in the mountain, has like 80 minutes to represent an hour. And the one living in the valley has about 40 minutes or 46 minutes to represent an hour. Because the sun set on those long before it set on those living on top of the mountain. That's how, immature or amateur, the science, was then. Science and religion was at that moment. One question I will have to challenge our viewers and listen to all of these beautiful souls that, follow, this podcast is that we like talking about, we start counting our time in the West, even the watch that we're wearing. Anytime we look at our phone, we speak about minutes. We speak about hours. We speak about seconds. Then no one ever asks a question why we started counting our time with second, but not with the first. No one asks that question. You don't start counting time at with a second when there is a first. What happened to the first? The whole humanity don't even pay attention to that. Indigenous people, we know, even a child, 5-year-old knows that to count something, you start from 1 to go to 2. You start from first to go to second. But we start counting our time from second, and then the next thing we in minutes. The next thing we like an hour. The next thing we like a day. The next thing we like a week. So if we have to go about that, let me say this: minutes. The concept of 1 minute is based on the heartbeat of a human being. 60 heartbeats is what the concept of 1 minute is. And the concept of hour would depend on those heartbeats, time, 60, minute, right? But there's someone living, born and living on the northern pole. Their heartbeat will be different from someone living on the southern pole, different from someone living around the equator. Someone's heartbeat, someone living on top of the mountains will have a different heartbeat. And then someone living, in the valley, on the plain and all of that, by the rivers and all of that, will have different heartbeats. So already we just facing now like a contemporary agreement on even how to count time. And that contemporary agreement is like, let's just make it 60 minutes, because average human being heartbeats, if your heart beats 60 times, then you have a second and you have a minute, right? And when you put it into perspective, it doesn't make sense, right? So even those living in the mountains, counting time based on, the 16 second, 60 seconds for a minute is wrong. A pregnant lady heart beats like, I think 100 times normally, 120 times normally a minute. What we call, a minute. But then, is she living in our time, or is she living outside of our time? So when we consider all of those realities, we will see that, we divide the modern society, lie to all of us. They lie to all of us because they have to work hard to suppress and almost eradicate, and then, get indigenous, people who have been holding knowledge, out of the picture. And also educating the modern human being not to go and look for the answers. And now the modern human being, even when they do have a way to go look for answers, they go to places where life is comfortable, everything's shining, and all of that. They're not going to tell you to travel to Africa to go. That's the, cradle of humanity. If there's any answers that you're looking for on Earth, that's where people are supposed to be going, because that's where everything started, awareness started. But somehow they painted Africa and African indigenous cultures as evil, as voodoo, as all of those, things that, people know about African practices. But our practices are just pure intelligence of nature and then of the universe. It's like a teaching. It's like a mystery schools, So let's go to the month. We're following a calendar that's telling us that, it has 12 months a year. And then those 12 months a year, we have months that are 21 days and 31 days. We have months that are 30 days. We have months that are 28 days. Actually, 1 month in a year, that kind of change depending on what's happening. Either 29 days, either 28 days. And on top of that, if it still doesn't make sense, because for us humans, it's supposed to be like, why we counting time that way? It's supposed to make sense. But we don't question, right? We even learn that at university. We even get degrees, PhDs and all of that. with those kind of things, And then we even have months that are like, when we take the month of September. September, in French, to say the number 7, you say sept. Sept. And September is almost like saying the 7th month. But somehow the 7th month end up being the 9th month of the year in our calendar. And then we go to October. Oct will be like 8. And then we end up counting our time where October is the 10th month of our calendar, when the name of the month itself let us know that 8 is there. The number 8 is there. November, like 9. It's like, we count time thinking that we counting it, to be like the 11th month of the year. But we call that 11th month the name that tell us that it's the 9th month. December, same thing. 12th month of the year. And then we call it by the name of, something that is in the 10th position, 10 December. But even that, all of our PhDs, all of our, political leaders, no one questioned that. No one think, it's time to rewrite the history of humanity. If we don't want to rewrite it, then let's reveal the archives that indigenous people have been keeping that we don't want anyone to know about. Because if you tell the world, like, to go to the indigenous people to see what are the archives, then the center of humanity change. It's not going to be anymore the so-called superpower country. Because the concept of superpower country is not necessarily based on the knowledge of our time and our space. It's based on the knowledge of how to destroy our time and our space. The capacity of destruction of our time and space is what makes some countries become like the superpower countries. Not based on the advancements of the human genius, not based on the advancement of ingenuity that humanity produces, And another discrepancy that, you can look and then understand that we are really being led as rams and cows and all of that in our modern society or our modern world now is that we talk about midnight, which in English, perfect English, will mean the middle of the night. We talk about, midday, which in English will mean the middle of the day. And at the same time, we made some gymnastics in our approach to time and space, in the way that we go 60 minutes from midnight, 60 minutes after midnight, we count 1 a.m., meaning we are in a new day. Because when you check after midnight, 60 minutes after midnight, you will see that, time change and the day change. And we are in a new day. And no one questioned like what kind of gymnastic, or what kind of, acrobacy, or what kind of, magic allow a human being to go from, a middle of the night to a new day in 60 minutes.
The new day should be when the sun comes up.
Sun comes up.
That's daytime.
That's daytime.
Yeah.
So what kind of magic we use to go from midday?
You need to run for president. Change some shit around here.
You need to run.
These things never made sense to me.
We will vote for you. Because...
And what about like yesterday too, you were talking about when what we call the new year on our Gregorian calendar as January 1st is in the middle of winter when everything's dead. There's nothing new. That's like the oldest time of the year.
Exactly.
Not the newest time
like
of the year.
Everything's dead.
It's like, God.
You see? who goes and celebrates, a new year when everything's dead. When in nature you look and even flies don't fly. Mosquitoes are not alive. All of the birds migrate, hide. All of the, life, natural lives and all of that kind of go to hide. But that's when we comes out to say like, oh, we're celebrating a new year.
Do the Dogon people in your archives have a totally different calendar that's established?
Yeah. We have a different calendar, and it's actually the oldest. We like saying that, and then people, don't like us saying that we have the oldest calendar that exists. We say that we have the oldest calendar that exists because we haven't changed the way we count time since the time of the pharaohs. We haven't changed the way time is counted, and then if Africa is like the place of the cradle of humanity, you don't get to reach the state of awareness. You don't reach the state of awareness if you don't know your time. For even Africa or the continent or the Nile Valley civilization to be considered as a place where humanity for the first time came to, achieve awareness is the day that we have actually completed the map of the sky. The map of the day the map of the sky was completed, that's the day that, they said, okay, now we know our space, we know our time. Then with the space and time, because you cannot separate the two concepts work together, and you cannot separate them. There's no way you can separate them. You cannot talk about time without the space, and you cannot talk about the space without time. That's what existence is. So the whole existence by itself, the whole universe is a time and space together, working together, to reach somewhere. And the day our ancestors in the Nile Valley, human ancestors in the valley, achieve that ingenuity, that ingenuity and all of that, that's the day that they declare like they reach awareness. So you wonder why people in the modern society are the way they are? That's because there's no awareness. Because no one knows what time it is. No one knows the space they live in and what. Everybody just knows about their job and then how to bring the bread on the table and then all of that.
And the latest episode of Keeping Up with Their Kardashians.
Exactly. Keeping up with, the reality shows and all of that. People have time to distract themselves, but people don't have time to research and question their existence.
Right. Well, this is the path of the mystic, right? The one who sits in nature and observes in solitude. And these are the people that we go to the mountaintop in the Himalayas or wherever and get the wisdom from those people who don't know anything. Right? It's like they're the uneducated are the initiated.
Yeah, right? Undeveloped and all of that. And it's sad the way our cultures look at the modern world. We appreciate the plains. We appreciate, even the plane, the concept of plane is like imitation, right? In our culture, in our teaching, we teach people that there's no emptiness in the universe. The universe is already full. That's why we call it the universe. That's why we call it the cosmos. Universe, like something that is unique, but within it, there's a lot of diverse things that can manifest, where everything is in the perfect order, the cosmos, and nothing can be added. Nothing new can be added within it.
Oh, that's a trip. So like, I'm thinking just from the sort of Vedic philosophy that there is only one thing, consciousness, right? So one. Versatility. So it's like, it's multiple expressions of one.
One thing.
Okay.
So that
is
means
that is that sort of what you're
that's
saying in a
kind
way?
of what I'm putting it without a religious perspective on it.
Sure. That's
But
just
more,
where I know that concept from.
exactly, but on the intellectual, perspective on it, approach on that, we will say that it's like one thing that exists, and within that thing, everything is different, but functioning for the advancements of that thing. It's like a human body. Human body is like a universe. We can call human body a universe where it's like one thing, but everything in the human body, different organs and different stuff and all of that, all of the cells and everything working together from the smallest to the biggest, all of them working together for the body to achieve whatever it's supposed to be achieving. Same thing as the universe, right? And within that universe, we learn once the rise of I think that was Industrial Revolution in England. When the Industrial Revolution was, born in England, then science, technology, all of that started kind of now producing these dreams of utopic dreams that certain things can be added, certain things can be done. But we have to do those things by, things that nature did not do, we want to do those things. Things that nature did not make, we want to make those things. Meaning, like, we want to challenge nature, or either destroy nature to make what it has not done. Right? So people travel around the world. Maybe it was slower without the highways. People travel around the world. Maybe it took them time without the planes. But somehow they travel. Even when the pilgrim came to America, they traveled from, East Coast to West Coast. They did that. How did they do that? We don't question, But we just, get to be in the state of enjoying what we call creation, what we call invention. We even have degrees, we have like recognitions that we give to those people who are inventors for whatever they invented. But to invent something, that thing has to be something that does not exist. To create something, it has to be something that does not exist, and then you're creating it. But the human being, in our teachings, the human being brain is capable of everything, but except one thing: creation. The human being brain will not create something that it hasn't been exposed to, either in your dreams, either in nature. So for the brain to be able to create something, it has to be exposed to it first. It has to be, be something that the brain already perceived or seen for it to, be created. Now, what we end up calling invention and we end up calling creation is the mistakes that we make in trying to copy what nature made. Like when we take the plane, it's like a bird. We watch how the bird fly, and then we try to imitate. And then we want to fly like birds, so we did that, And then we look at many cars that we drive. Every car that you see, once you turn the lights on and you watch it from far in the dark, it's like an animal. It's like the face of an animal in nature. Everything we're doing, we even give them the names: Jaguar, this, that, and all of that. So it's like, that's how we...
Even boats are like a bird, like a duck on the water.
Exactly, duck on the water, or,
with their feet, the little propellers.
Thank you. So it's the same thing. So we have to watch something in nature to copy it, but we don't call that invention. Now, once you copy it and then you copy wrong, that's what you call invention. That's what you call, creativity. But that's what the modern society kind of rewards. So you see, at the depth of the human brain, the modern society or Western society rewards mistakes, rewards things that are fake, rewards things that are not the reality. So then, why will you and I be sitting here blaming this American young guy, young boy, or young lady who's like, I want awareness. Let me travel to Peru and go get it. Let me travel to the Amazon and go get it. Let me travel to China or India and go get it. And then they come and then they make mistakes. People like that. People don't like people who do things real, because in the depth of every brain in this society, whatever is not real is more rewarded. That's why we have all of the how do you call them, like stars in Hollywood and all of that. They have to they don't live the way Hollywood present them. I think you even can tell me better. They have their way that they live. They have
You
their
got that
family.
right.
They have their things that they do every day like a normal human being. But because they are hired to, pay to show a fake of them, then that fake of them is rewarded. So that's a big problem of our society nowadays. And
Very interesting, interesting perspective that I'm going to really have to ponder that one.
Yeah.
What about language?
Language.
Now we look at all the Latin languages, right?
Yeah.
It's like they represent different cultures, yet they're still essentially rooted in the same foundation. And you were talking yesterday about your language and all the many dialects of your people. And then at one point you even talked about when you were playing your drum, which, by the way, sent me into a really unbelievably deep state, which is a whole other conversation probably. Yeah. But you said, my people, when I'm playing my drum, it's actually speaking, and it's speaking a language, and they would know by the way I'm hitting the drum and the different notes that it's producing exactly what I'm saying. I thought that was fascinating. So tell us a bit about your language and language as a whole. And what I think is most interesting about that is the limitations of most of the languages in the world. Let's just say the Latin languages again, that they really lack the true expression of the expansiveness of nature and the natural world and the cosmos. So we're kind of, it seems with the language that I speak in English, for example, that I'm limited to a very limited bandwidth of communicating my experience.
Yes. English, if we want to, because we're speaking in English, is called a language, because we just don't know that. We don't know what the concept of language is. In French, the tongue is la langue. So that's where the concept of even language is coming from. It's even a borrowing. So for someone who speaks English, to say that English is a language is even controversial, because you call your tongue in a language that belongs to another tongue, because langage is coming from the langue. The French word for language, for the tongue, is langue.
Yeah, Spanish lengua.
Lengua.
Right, is that right? Lengua?
Exactly. So then for English person to say like, oh, I'm speaking language, English is my language, it doesn't make sense in the brain. So English has, I think, 26 letters to manifest its language. 26 A, B, all the way to Z. And with 26 letters, how will you be able to manifest the whole universe, the whole nature, the whole existence with only 26 letters? If we are considered to be like intelligent beings, I mean, how can we manifest our intelligence, with 26 letters? You can see we are limited. And because of that, we end up using concepts. No, we end up putting words together to explain a concept. We end up putting sounds together to make up words, and then all of that. And when we say like transport, transformation, and all of that, it's because in English, there's no way to just, explain the concept of something that is changing, So then we have to be using two different, concepts to do that. Now, English is not a language. Any language, quote unquote, that's derived from the Latin roots is not a language. We call that a dialect. That's called a dialect. Because the dialect is like a deterioration of a language. It's like a degeneration of a language. And then anyone who speaks French, English, Spanish, and all of that, those are just like the generation of the Latin, concept, which itself is also like a combination of many other civilizations, language that put together to make it, right? So when we look at English, we cannot make sounds. We only speak letters. Like, let's say you teach a child that the letter B, you call it B, right? Or let's say B. But we don't teach our children in English, you don't teach a child that letter is B. But you teach your child that letter is B. But it's a letter. But that letter has two letters to describe it. Because B will be like the B, the sound B, and the sound E to describe a letter that we call B, right? And then you have the letter like N. And then in English, you call it N. N. So technically, you're using two sounds, like E and E and N to describe the sound N. That's how we teach our children. The sound A. A normally is the sound that should make is A. The letter should make the sound A. But somehow we use, the concept of A to describe that sound. Because we don't teach our children English to say A, B, A, B. We don't say that. We tell them to say A, B, right? So let's say a child that's so intelligent that's not conditioned yet, that has their brain that has not been conditioned yet. Let's say that you write the word banana on the board. And you ask the child, can you read this for me after learning the letter? Can you read this for me? If that child, that child having like a brain that's so fresh, unconditioned brain, and then everything, that child resonates with nature, with whatever makes sense, and there was whatever is logical, that child will read it BNN. But you're not gonna let him say that. You're not gonna let your child say that. You're gonna make, no, it's red banana. But it doesn't make sense because you tell me this is this, this is this, this is this. That's when you put them together, this is what they make. So we call that the contemporary agreements. And that's the language that we speak in. That's the language that is leading the world. A language that's like a contemporary agreement, A language that does not have anything to do with nature. A language that does not have anything to do with who we are. So you cannot speak a tongue. You cannot be uttering things out of your mouth that your heart ordered your brain to order the tongue, to say, when it doesn't even have anything that it looks like in nature. It doesn't even manifest the nature, represent nature that you live in. So when you take the letter A, the way we even write it, nothing in nature really looks like it. Nature doesn't make things that look like that. When you take letter B, nature doesn't make things that look like that. All of the letters that we have, you look at them. We even have the letter W. When you really write W, that letter, the way we write it, that's almost like W. But we are taught to read it as W. When it's supposed to be like W, that is we use to make that letter, So all of that is what's causing the mental degeneration of our societies nowadays, because we say things that don't even exist in nature. We see things different way. We don't even see nature anymore. We see things different way. And in Africa, in our indigenous places, we speak the sounds. We don't have letters, but we have sounds. And most of the languages that I speak have at least 400 sounds that we make, and then about 300 ideograms. So we speak based on sonograms and ideograms. And all of those languages that we speak, I can only speak about Africa. All of the languages that we speak in our continents, in our villages, in our continent, are languages that have their roots directly connected to the language that the ancient Egyptian were speaking. I'm not talking about the Arabs in Egypt now, that they speak Arabs. But the language that the original ancient Egyptian speak before the Arab invasion of that land is called the Medu. Medu, which means the speech. But Medu Neter, which means the divine speech, or the sacred speech, which when you look at those characters and the sound and the representation, everything is nature represented. Our concept of is a bird, eagle. Our concept of where you will say M is what you call that bird again? The bird that has a big eyes. Owl. It's an owl. So you will see that most of the characters and most of the sounds that are preserved, are really like nature. So we speak in nature, right? So that also travel all the way to the traditional languages that we speak today. Like my language that I speak, Tem or Gurmanche, they have at least 40% or all the way to 60% of their concepts that are directly connected to the Nile Valley language that was spoken. A reason why even like the Greeks call it hieroglyphs. The Greek called that language hieroglyphs, meaning like the sacred writing. Hieroglyphs, the sacred writing. So that's even why they call it that way. When they came to study, they saw that writing, that language is about things that are very sacred. And then there's no way for you to curse in that language. There's no way for you to say, even for you to even be planning to say wrong things, it's difficult for the brain.
Wow.
The brain gets challenged.
Wow.
So technically, you speak a language that does not give you the option of saying evil, saying bad things.
That's heavy.
You see?
What about in this ancient language? Are there words or concepts for ownership, for a person to be able to say own land or own an ox? That's my thing. That's my that.
No, you don't. Even in the writing of to say like my, like if I want to say like my hat that's in front of me here, I would say like AFF-E. And then that character is a human being. It's not me.
Wow, that's cool.
You see, like the character of I is the human being.
Wow.
You see,
in the hieroglyphs in Egypt, for example, in the pyramids and whatnot, and I know nothing about history, so bear with me if I don't get any of it right. But are those hieroglyphs all, or are most of them pre-Arabic?
That's the very first language. Arabic, I think Arabs are still looking for the origin of their language.
Oh, okay.
You can question the Arabs. Do they know where their language is coming from? No, seriously. Like the origin of their language, where is it coming from? Like when we want to speak about English, English, origins of it's Latin. French, some of it's Latin, Germanic, Anglo-Saxon, and all of that. So you can trace certain languages like that. But the Arabic language is the one that cannot be traced yet because no one knows where that language is coming from.
What about Sanskrit?
Sanskrit is a variation of what we call the hieroglyphs. It's a variation. That's why it doesn't even carry the name of the glyphs, but more so like the script. So script means what? Like Sanskrit. Script means that someone learned something, and then tried to write it, develop it. But the glyph is like writing itself. So meaning you write the book, I read the book, I can take that, whatever I read from your book, and then make like a script of what I read from your book. So there's a lot of languages that became from their original language, which is just like nature, speaking nature. And they want to teach people Egyptology is a discipline that is created in modern world universities that I don't like. And I'm sorry for the people who really follow the Egyptologists and then anthropologists and all of that. They just, they're just doing the job of what, religion and science started. That's what they're just doing. So,
well, it seems like there's a lot of controversy around the temples, the pyramids, etc. in Egypt. There's a school of thought that many people hold that those structures are pre-Egyptian and that they've been commodified because of tourism and academia and such, that the true origin and history and age of these structures is not what we've been told too. And again, I don't know a lot about that, but
I know a lot about it because I get those questions a lot.
Yeah,
and people like talking about is it Atlantis? Atlantid? Atlantis. Yeah, they're saying that Atlantis is older than the civilization in Egypt. Atlantis, that concept itself. I mean, for us, we're not emotional in our culture. In any African culture, we don't move forward approaching things with emotions. We use the logic, the brain, right? Atlantis itself is a Greek word. That's a Greek word, Atlantis. It's a Greek word. But the Greeks were traveling to Egypt to learn. The Greeks are like the student of Egyptians. That only should tell people that, okay, you're just trying to take the credit away from a group of people, but you don't have a way of doing it. I want to say something here in front of these cameras and then challenge anyone and say, gather your strength and keep, have courage. It's more courage and buy your ticket and travel to Africa. It's not Africa is not what they tell you. Travel to Africa, you will discover Africa. Travel to Africa, and then I decide to, that's why even most of the countries in Africa, they will paint it in red and say that's terrorist activities. You shouldn't go there. You shouldn't go there. That's the fear. That's ruling people with fear. People live there. People live there. Your embassies are there. You have military bases over there. But they tell the citizen not to go, because of, whatever you discover and all of that.
Probably not any more dangerous than Chicago or
Chicago,
San Francisco.
or San Francisco anyway, So the logic is that Atlantis is a Greek word, and then if we consider it to be a Greek word, then the Greeks were just people who were coming to study under the Egyptian priesthood and temple, mystery schools and all of that. There's a story I'm going to tell you. If I know you will laugh and people will laugh about that story. But that story is at the foundation of what you call modern society. That story is the foundation of what you call modern world. At some point in time, people were traveling to Kemet, what we call Kemet, Egypt, ancient Egypt, to go and then study philosophy, astrology, astronomy, mathematics, physics, chemistry, medicine, all of that. People were traveling in Egypt for that. Because at that moment, that's where the awareness is. Almost like the day today, how people want to travel to Dubai. Because Dubai is rising now, they rise up. So everyone wants to go see there. Everyone wants to go buy things there. Or China. Everyone wants to go buy things there because it's cheap and all of that. So for that time, in human history, that area, that valley, was the area where awareness was like valued. All of that, everything was like, you want to evolve, you have to travel there, right? And after many generations of people traveling, then rivalry and jealousy and envy start coming. And those people, especially the Roman, not the Roman, the Greeks, ask, if there was a way for them to stop traveling to Africa, now that they are, they studied, they apprenticed, they became, so well known in whatever they were coming to learn. Is there a way for them to stop coming in Africa every year to, honor the temples, and then they can just build their own temples on their lands? And the priest said, but why will you build a temple on your lands? And then those temples already exist here that built you and all of that. Show some integrity and then some, dignity towards the powers that, help you elevate. They're like, well, because they want to honor their temples and stop traveling here, because now they feel like they can become themselves. Just like how everybody's doing today too. Everybody go and take and come, and then wants to use it to be like, yeah, now I have it too, So the priests in the temples then ask them, so what God will you have in your temples there when you build that? They will say, we will have this God. But isn't that God that we have here? What will your God do? We will have a God for sun. We'll have a God of war, a God of, famine, a God of rain. Then the priests in Egypt were like, well, we have all of those gods here. That's the temples. Those gods already have temples here where the whole world is coming to worship. Because the goal was like the unification of humanity. So you shouldn't have your own temple somewhere. You're supposed to have, one authority, which is the Pharaoh, the temple that the Pharaoh recognized, one authority under which everybody comes to learn, which makes, the whole world disciplined And every year, the whole world will converge towards one location. What people are doing today, people are going to Mecca every year to go on Hajj. People are going to Vatican on a pilgrimage every year. Mecca on a pilgrimage every year. People do that, right? So that's what was really the goal. Every year, everybody has to go on a pilgrimage to the Nile Valley, and then take advantage to honor all of those powers in nature that those people were able to connect with and then establish temples for. They said no, they want their own temples. Then they say, okay, since all of the things you try to create, then they try to create, already have a temple over here. Is there something that does not have a temple yet? And the priest in Kemet told them, well, everything has a temple already. Everything has a temple. All of the temple are already occupied. There's nothing in the universe that you can look at and think it doesn't have a temple. Everything has a temple already occupied. And that's when they asked the priest, is there a temple for nothing? He's like, what do you mean? Come again? Do you all have a temple of nothing? It's like, nah, we don't even have that concept. It's like, okay, then we will create our temples, and then our temples will be will be temples of nothing. And the priests are like, just for curiosity, what will your temple, the God, who will be the God of your temple? So the God of nothing. Like, okay. Another curiosity, what will your God do? What will be the function of your God? It will be a God that allows you to do anything you want to do, and everything you want to do, anything you want to be, everything you want to be. Then the no principle, meaning a temple that worship a God who is a God of no principle, a God of freedom, the concept of freedom. And that's what, build the society. And they took that concept. In their mythology, you can see that. You can see in the mythology how the mother and the children would team up to kill the father. And all of that. What do you see in the modern society? So, like that. So, when the modern society travel around the world and, prone, like, freedom, democracy is just like, fake. It's like they know what they're doing. No one is free over here. And then what does really freedom mean? Freedom means you live in a life with that principle, a life with that discipline. And that's why the concept of laws have to be, put in place. You have to create laws. So meaning like through the Greeks, the whole modern society or Western society get to stand on the rock that is against principle, but for law. Because normally principle is something that comes from divine. Principle is like something that's divine, that came from the divine. And then the law is something that's made by man. So then because we're worshiping a God, a man-made God, and then everything we have to stand by will have to be made by men too. But how do you call, in good English, how do you call a God that is made by a man?
Counterfeit.
That's a demon.
Oh, even worse. Well,
That's a demon.
I like where you're going here, because lately I've been contemplating, how do I articulate this in a way that's concise? Looking at the geopolitical landscape, right? I mean, in our country in the past few years, it's a clown show. I mean, it's literally a circus, right?
Yeah, it's a circus, man.
And so we're all under the assumption that if our society is off track, that we have the freedom, in quotes, to elect someone different that's going to make things different, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're outsourcing our culture to people that we hold the false conception of being people that have some inherent God-given right to rule over other people.
Yep.
And so the older I get, and hopefully more wise I get, it seems that the error is that we have a superstition as a people that certain special people are bestowed with the right to impose their will over other people. And we believe that we have a choice, AKA freedom, because we can pick one ruler over another ruler, even though I don't really think we have much choice in who rules. But I'm of this concept that no human being has the inherent right to rule over any other human being. And to your point, these laws, these demonic laws that are made of the laws of man and not the principles of God or spirit, keeps us sort of spinning in this perpetual fantasy that somehow we can affect change by picking a different false law, right? And so it's like this illusion of choice, wherein if we're following the principles of God, there is no law higher than that law.
No.
So we don't need the people, we don't need the government.
No.
But we've been so conditioned to think that we need government.
Yeah.
And that's how they trick us. Like, right, that's how we give up our power and we allow them to travel around the world and extinguish the wisdom of all the indigenous cultures,
people.
all the medicines, all of the connection to nature, all of these ancient teachings that are being put out, and they're the fires, the embers that keep the human civilization moving forward.
Yes, because
it seems that the root, much of the root of that is our superstition in believing that someone needs to save us or rule over us, and that has power over us.
Not even that. It's just this system that is this system that has established the modern or the Western way of doing things is a system that's scared of competition. And it does not like another system to exist. And the only way that system can exist freely and no worry and feel like it's safe is by extinguishing any other system that existed before it.
Yes.
So let me shock you a little bit. Okay. The reason why you and I cannot run for the White House, to be in the White House, is because you and I, we are not the descendant of the founding fathers of America. If you and I were somehow direct or distant descendants of those who signed the American Constitution, the founding father who signed the American Constitution, yeah, maybe one day you and I can dream, or we can dream that our children can run. So technically, the reason why every 4 years we change a person in the White House, or every 8 years someone has to be changed. But when you look at all of them, they all are descendants, either direct or indirect descendants of those that are called the founding fathers. So technically, they are being chosen to keep safe the legacy of their ancestors.
Yeah.
So if my ancestor was brought in America as a slave, that's what I'm going to be. There's no way I'm going to be somewhere else. If my ancestor ran from Italy and then come and live here and then has to struggle to establish, that's what he's going to keep doing. If my ancestor ran from Ireland to come and then do that, that's what he's going to be doing. He will never get closer to that. Now, is there like any shortcuts to get through that? Yes, then you have to sell something. You have to exchange. You have to sell something. You have to sell your soul, your dignity, your integrity. You have to sell something for you to get, away. So that's why, being in this work and then kind of a spiritual and cultural revolutionary activist, that I can say that, I like saying that I am. I just don't trust any human being that feels like they are in position to make the law.
Word.
Yeah, I just don't trust that.
Me either, because in your heart, in your gut, if you just think about it, what gives the right, again, I'm going to say the same thing, what gives the right for one human being to exert their will over another human being because they're born to a bloodline, because their founding fathers were this or that? It just goes against my nature.
It has to.
In my heart, I know that that's not right.
It's not right. It's not.
And yet, here we are in this matrix that we call civilization that's been superimposed upon ancient civilizations that were already here doing just fine. Right? I mean, not that there weren't always problems with humanity and warring tribes and whatever, right? But now you actually can't leave the system, really. I mean, try to go live in the woods and be left alone. You can't do it.
There's no way you can do it.
You have to have a birth certificate, a passport, a social security number. You really can't exist outside of the system unless, I don't know, maybe there are remote tribes in the Amazon or elsewhere that are just born of their mother and they live on the land and are left uninterrupted. But that group of people is minute, right? And very rare.
You're just a product, a property of the one. People thought that slavery is finished. Now slavery is not just on Black people. Everybody's slave now to
free range.
For few families.
Free range slavery, right? I can drive down the road, but I always say, try to not pay taxes.
Now you will see what will
let
happen.
Me know how free you are. And that's not to diminish, actual slavery, obviously, but there are degrees of slavery, right?
Exactly.
There's degrees where you're in a forced labor camp and you can't leave the property. But there's a spectrum of degrees, and we all on the planet, for the most part, experience some degree of that, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you can be a slave and wearing tie, no problem. Wearing a suit, no problem. But you just.
I would argue that you're volunteering yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Be like,
I've tried wearing a tie a couple of times. I thought, I don't feel right. This is not. Just wearing something around your where you breathe, man.
I mean, it's a good symbol. People just don't look at realities, because reality is built for people to look at, but not the reality itself. Already that is in my place. Sorry to say that in my place, goats and cows and rams are the one that carries ropes around their necks. That we put ropes on the necks and all of that. But the working class or the politician is aware of the fact that they are in the system where they cannot get out of. It's like you and I have something that we can do in life. Do you think a good politician knows how to do something in life if he's not talking? And then
acting.
Yeah. That's it. So, it's just something, what it is. And
I knew we were going to have fun.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if we didn't cover this. I know we've been going for a while, so thank you for your generosity of time.
No
when I'm interested in someone, I could go forever. You're an interesting dude.
I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Going back to the Nile Valley, and again, I've never been terribly interested in Egypt or the pyramids or anything. It's starting to come into my awareness because many of our friends here go there often, and I hear some pretty impressive stories. But one of the things that I find interesting, and you alluded to this earlier, are these structures that we can't explain through modern science, technology, mathematics, and so on, that seem to pop up on the planet in different places with cultures that were supposedly not in touch with one another, that all exist on very specific ley lines on the planet.
Correct.
So that gets my interest, because when I'm being lied to, it instigates a yearning and curiosity for the truth. Well, if this is not true, then what is, right? And one thing I find interesting about the Nile Valley and the situation of the temples and pyramids there is, if you look at that river, you can look at it as a spine with the chakra systems, and that shit lines up.
Yep.
You know, and it's like you were talking about yesterday, you know, the macrocosm and the microcosm, as below, so above, and this kind of thing, right? Yeah. What do you, I don't know, what's your perspective or the Dogon perspective on these energy centers and their placement, and if the people that were building them were in some kind of communication physically or telepathically?
Magnetically, yes. Spiritually, yes. And, you know, when we want to use the telepathic, that's just like, you know, leading people to think that you can just sit and think about something, it will manifest, right? But it's not the culture that built those pyramids and that built those rocks and, you know, all of that. It's a culture that is a culture of reality and then pure thinking. Pure thinking. That's what built those cultures. And those structures, in my language, we will call them, you know, jinglies. You know, kind of, they're like a gigantic jinglies, meaning kind of portals. Okay. What's a jingli? A jingli is a place that has a concentrated of energies that human identify. And then through that, the human then will set it. There's a technology that allow us to set, you know, that thing in the way that you tell the other realities, invisible realities, that from now on, between you and I, this is the border, and this is where we meet to exchange. Almost like creating some sort of embassy, where, you know, you meet and then exchange and all of that.
Between the seen and unseen realms.
Seen and unseen realms, you know. So the jingle is almost like the border between the two, the material and the non-material world. That's the border.
Got it.
You know, and then the spiritual, the physical manifestation of it can be from 4 rocks, small rocks like this in your space, in your, you know, very spiritual space, or can be even like a big structures that can be constructed, you know. So one thing you have to notice, like in the modern societies, when a monument is built on a concentrate energy. Okay, that's why when they build the monuments, it's closed, because there's gonna be like you know, stuff to be done before that monument is placed there. So they close it to the point where you don't see what's being built. It's only when it's finished that they came and then they unwrap it, so you can see. Well, we clap, like we achieved something, you know. So at that moment, that's what it was too. So though, you remember I was saying the Pharaoh will have to, his job is like the unification of humanity on every level, not just physically, spiritually, intellectually, magnetically, energetically, and all of that. Everything has to be unified, because that's what will allow the other celestial body to feel like, or realities or existences to feel like, you know, we are not a danger to them, and then to feel like they can, you know, interact with us. We can exchange and do things.
So it's like a neutral meeting ground.
Meeting ground.
Yeah.
Thank you. So then all of the things that were built are like on ley lines, you know, Stonehenge, those in, you know, South America, those in China, those in Australia, and all of those, even like, you know, in the Pacific and all of those things are like, you know, centered. And then their communication goes from those, you know, other places all the way to the Nile Valley. And then one specific thing about Nile Valley is that that's the only river that you will see that will flow from south to north. And then that's the only river you will see that in its flow. It starts from a body of water, Lake Victoria, and then travel through the mountains, forests, through the desert to go, and then, go into another body of water, the Mediterranean Sea. That's the only river you see that. So the technology is pure. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not, we shouldn't, I don't want to lead people to think like it's something that is like, you have to be imagined. It's not an imagination. It's a reality, pure fact that ancestors have to pinpoint, to be able to do that. So even our concept of time, when we're talking about the calendar, our concept of time was based on that too. But that even is something that allow, time to be very well verified by making sure the space was verified as well. And then that's how they did. And then we created the calendar. We call it the sidereal calendar, calendar based on the Sirius star, all of that. And then it has its cycle, it has its spiritual thing. It allows you to practice your spirituality, tell you the period you were born in, under what power were you born in, what are the forbiddings and all of that, things you should eat, things you shouldn't eat, things you shouldn't kill, and all of that. It has all of that. They tell you when to worship your ancestors, when to worship the divine powers. It gives you all of that. Because there are some days where, even the divine powers and all of that don't respond. There's some days, they don't respond. So those days, we call those days the days of rest. So those days are the days that normally everybody will take time to clean their space, clean the temple, clean their shrine, reorganize everything and all of that. So we have all of that exists in that calendar. And then we have the app as well. People can look at it at the app, like Kemetic.
An app? Is that what you said?
Yeah, we have an
cool.
app. Yeah.
Is that on your website or
It's
something?
on the website.
Oh, for real?
So,
cool.
yeah,
We'll put that in the show notes. And I forgot to mention the show notes, you guys listening. It's going to be lukestory.com/Dogon, Dogon, lukestory.com/Dogon.
Yeah.
With the pyramids and other ancient sacred structures, I mean, the golden question here is, how did they do it, And it seems to me, a lot of people think that there were advanced alien, ETs and stuff. To me, and and I don't know, right? And I don't know that much about this. I'm just a guy, I watch a few YouTube videos, like I'm an idiot, okay? But it seems to me that it's very likely that these ancient civilizations had an understanding of physics that have been lost, that we don't understand. Some kind of use of electromagnetism, using the forces of nature and energy in a way that would seem magical to us now because we've lost so much of our intelligence. Do you think that it's something like that?
It's not lost.
Okay.
If I have to answer that question.
it's only lost to me and a lot of other people.
I will answer that it's not lost because, how do you call it? It's things that have been preserved and hidden.
Okay.
Imagine those powers have to be in the hand of the modern society.
Oh, right.
Those knowledge, just with the small archives that they were able to, steal, in the temples, dig in the graves and steal in the temples in that valley and all of that. You saw what they built. You saw what they did, what they're doing. So imagine they were able to have access to, those powers. We still have pyramids in the desert that have been, dug up now. They're digging out and they're taking archives as well in the desert. There's still pyramids, and not just those that are in our valley, because when the migration happened, it happened in settlements. From there all the way to Sudan. That's why even now the Egyptologists are bringing the confusion that there's a difference between ancient Egypt and then Nubia, but they don't understand that it's like, settlements. During the migration, before the temples and the civilization start kind of falling, over there. Then, people start settling, moving, migrating, and then settling as they move. And then when we speak about the concept of migration, people don't understand what that means. That means that you're moving with all of your chickens, goats, human, men, children, women, pregnant women, elders, everything. You're moving with all of those. And then on top of that, all of the spiritual acquisitions and spiritual things that you already acquired and everything, you're moving with all of that. So you can only continue working for so long because you have to stop at some point and restart, and then that's what they did. They will start, and the generation will be in one settlement, and then they will continue. They will be like, okay, now this new generation, you continue. And that's why you will see, like in the migration from as the Dogon, we went like from east to west, where like, it was, and then when we try to realign ourselves, it's easy for us. We just know the direction to take. And the direction will be like from west, we go east. And when we go east, we know all of where all of the settlements are because the language will still remain there and the practices will be there. And then we have the concept of the norms. So we still have the norms. And when we see the norms, it tells us already where we are and then how we should be conducting ourselves and all of that in that domain and all of that. So yeah, those things still exist. They haven't been, lost. It's just preserved and then fallen in the hand of the modern society. Modern society will decide to kill all of us.
It's like giving a child a weapon.
A weapon,
All right, last question for you.
Yeah.
Yesterday during the proceedings of the ceremony, we're working with all these different herbal concoctions, teas and eggs and kola nuts. And at one point we had this brain cleansing snuff that I would closely resemble the experience of hape, right?
Yeah.
Didn't make me nauseous though, but like, really lit the brain up.
Mm-hmm.
In the Dogon culture or in your experience, is there ever a place for any psychoactive plants, iboga or kana or any of the kind of what's considered plant medicines now? Is that part of y'all's world at all?
Yeah. Once let's talk about iboga. Right? Iboga is a plant that comes from the people in the forest. Okay. And we are the people from the savannah, right? And then for us, we have different ways of approaching existence and then the hidden, part of existence. And then those ways don't necessarily involve the psychedelics or the alteration of human mind because those practices that we use are purely hard work where like we give you the technique. It's like a Shaolin temple. You don't go to Shaolin temple and they give you psychedelics to know how to do your Tai Chi and all of that. They just teach you the technique and they get you the discipline. They get you to work hard, For something like that, people like doing yoga. People will put all kind of money, all kind of time, into practicing yoga, But when it comes to practicing spirituality and investigating the non-material world, people will just take the shortcuts and then take the plant medicine to do that. Now, as the Dogon, even if we do have it, I would never expose it because the exposition of it is what now is leading all of the Amazon and all of those, other cultures, to be kind of invaded and then corrupted and then being destroyed and all of that, For us, goals, we expose our goal and then we're dying for that, So now let's talk about medicine. No, and then psychedelics is becoming like scientific, they're taking it. It's like a modern science again. Modern society is gaining. It's taken from indigenous people some techniques or some knowledge to kind of make it their property. And then all of that, which is like another way of usurping, something, using something that is not yours without even recognition or saying thank you, without even finding a way to give back to the people and all of that, right? So when you look at where Iboga is coming from, it's around, Gabon, some part of Cameroon, and those who know the geography, African geography, and then Congo and all of that. So when you bring the two, lands together, and then try to kind of take the sea out of the picture, and then you put them together with South America, you will see there's a continuation. They are the same, thing and all of that. So those people will need to really depend on those things to be able to evolve. It's too wet. It's too wet, But for us in our, temples or where we're from in our villages, our lands, we just make you work. You just make you work, you do things, and then, it will start happening.
Well, I can tell you yesterday when you started playing your drum, and I didn't have any kind of substances or anything other than the herbal cleansing teas that you guys served, which weren't psychoactive or anything. Dude.
I know.
I mean, it wasn't like I was having hallucinations or something like that, but what happened for me was I've only had this happen a couple other times when I was working with plant medicines.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what was very interesting, very sober, and I didn't have to even work that hard. I just sat and listened, right?
And then adjust the beats.
But man, I started having this energy move in my body, and I know that energy, and I know I'm not doing it, and I know I also can't stop it.
I trust you. I believe you, and I knew that it was intentional too.
It was beautiful.
For me to be beaten and doing that, you can see how dedicated I was as well. It's like it was intentional. I wanted to make a point where, like, even vibration, the beats and its vibration, the sound, the beats vibration can get you to visit the invisible.
Well, you did. I mean, I was crying and shit, and it went on for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like, I felt a funny feeling. I mean, I just surrendered to it and rolled with it because I knew that it was good, you know. But it was very powerful. So
when you come to my place, you'll be amazed. You come to our place, you'll be amazed because few techniques and technologies that we have, all from nature. You said it: egg, kola nut, flowers, things like that, a drum, and then somehow you get people. You can get your ancestral spirit activated in you just drumming. You can get your past life, play to you just drumming without any effects of any sort of, stimulant or anything like that. But the music, the beats, the sounds will be the stimulant that will resonate from your feet all the way to your crown and then get you there.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to do more of it. Before we close, where can people find you? We'll put in the show notes again at lukestorey.com/Dogon, Dogon.
Yeah.
I know you guys have your African herbs and stuff I've been taking, and anything you want to, send people to that.
Yeah. My father started, an organization when he came because it's modern society. You have to align by the law. You have to, abide by the law and then do your activities and all of that. So he started a nonprofit, called the Earth Center of Manu Inc. And it's a nonprofit that kind of, does great work. Has been for 25 years now. Have been doing a great work for our people. Even now that our people are, misplaced or maybe have to leave their lands and all of that, that's the nonprofit that has been taking care of those people and helping them and, giving them homes and all of that. So that, is actually a cultural, institution where most of the Dogon mission, when it comes to everything that we share in the history, philosophy, spirituality, initiation, rite of passage, all of these things that we're sharing. And that's where, we do those, activities activities and all of that. That's the organization that's in charge of that. And a few years ago, we started another nonprofit. We call it Ankhkasta Natural Healing. Ankhkasta Natural Healing is the nonprofit that we started that actually comes to complete the job that the other nonprofit, the Earth Center, is doing, and complete the job in the way that it's good to have the knowledge. It's good to sit and listen to the problems. It's good to sit and listen to the good prophecies and good messages and all of that. But it's better when you have the practicality of it, when you have a way of solving those problems, when you have a way of dealing with it practically, with the thing. So Ankhkasta Natural Healing, comes to, open that gates and then allow the human being, to, deal with, practically deal with their spirituality, deal with their, energies, deal with their physical body and all of that. So any, elements, any spiritual blockages and any, energetic blockages that human goes through. So Ankhkasta has like a network of, Dogon priesthood, Dogon eldership and priesthood and Dogon healers. Those people have like a long line of healing in their DNAs and their, families and lineage and all of that. Or those who have that kind of priesthood also in their lineage. So it's like a network, a very big network, of priests and all of that all around, who now kind of, at, the service of anyone in the modern society or even in those indigenous societies who are in need of, of those services and those help and all of that. And Ankhkasta and the Earth Center has been, I've been working a lot to rebuild all of the temples that have been fallen, rebuild all of the original temple, not just, because people don't understand the difference between a shrine and a temple. A shrine is just like a space where you do your thing, but a temple is like many shrines coming together. So many lineages, come together, where everybody bringing their piece of gift to nature and put it together for the service of, the people. So yeah, we've been building the temples and then buying, back the lands that, the indigenous people have been, taken away from. They've been, ripped off. We've been buying those back and, saving the natural forces, especially natural forces that exist. That's what we save.
Cool.
Yeah, so people, if you want to look us, you can look just at maybe Naba Lamusa on the internet, and you'll find us, or go to, www.theearthcenter.org or Ankhkasta www.anhlife.org, and you'll see everything we do.
Awesome. We're going to put it all in there. Well, man, thank you so much for coming to Austin, Texas.
Thank you.
It's been an incredible couple days with you. I'm so glad we got the time to do this.
Thank you for the hospitality.